In the relentless, high-stakes hierarchy of Hollywood power, there is one phone call that every celebrity prays for, and one silence that every celebrity fears. For Meghan Markle, that phone line, the one leading directly to the mahogany desk of Oprah Winfrey, was once her ultimate lifeline. It was her shield against the British press, her sanctuary in the American market, and her golden ticket to a level of legitimacy that even a royal title couldn't guarantee. But as the winter fog rolls over the darkened estate in Montecito, that line has gone chillingly, deafeningly silent. While the world was distracted by the flashing bulbs and the designer silhouettes of Paris Fashion Week, a much darker narrative was being written behind the closed curtains of the Hotel Plaza Athénée. What started as a triumphant rebrand for the Duchess of Sussex has rapidly devolved into what industry insiders are calling the Parisian heist, not a physical theft, but an alleged theft of status, a calculated attempt to finesse the world's most elite fashion houses into bankrolling a lifestyle that the Sussex empire can no longer support on its own. For years, the public has debated the Sussex narrative. Is it a story of modern liberation or a calculated social climb? But this time, the conversation has changed. This isn't just another tabloid rumor or a leaked quote from an anonymous palace aide. This time, there are receipts. Physical, undeniable, and devastating invoices that have reportedly begun to circulate among a UK-based documentary team, threatening to expose the gears of the Sussex PR machine in a way that no interview ever could. The stakes have never been higher. We are witnessing the moment the Sussex illusion finally collided with the hard, unforgiving reality of global power. From the withdrawal of Oprah Winfrey's public protection to the explosive discovery of a shadow paymaster we are calling Mr. X, the foundation of the House of Montecito is cracking. By the end of this deep dive investigation, we will reveal why this specific Parisian trip was the ultimate mic drop that backfired in the most spectacular way possible. We will explore the psychological warfare between Meghan and the Parisian elite, the exact mechanics of the alleged ghost contract with Balenciaga, and the moment Prince Harry realized that his wife had potentially dragged the royal name through the mud for a hotel discount. This is the story of a comeback that became a cautionary tale. It is the story of how a single week in the City of Light turned the world's most famous victim into Hollywood's most radioactive celebrity. And it all begins with the silence of a neighbor who was once her greatest champion. To understand why the Paris disaster was so catastrophic, you have to understand the Meghan 2 vision. By early 2024, the Sussexes were facing a crisis of relevance. The victim narrative had reached its expiration date. The Spotify deal was a memory, the Netflix projects were under immense pressure, and the public was growing weary of the constant backward-looking complaints about the British royal family. Meghan needed a hard pivot. She needed to transcend the disgruntled royal label and ascend into the atmosphere of the global power player. Her target wasn't just celebrity, it was a very specific kind of archetype. She wanted to be the next Amal Clooney, the sophisticated, intellectually formidable, and effortlessly chic icon who commands respect in every room, from the UN to the front row of a couture show. The Amal Clooney strategy was a masterclass in aspirational PR. It required a complete overhaul of Meghan's public image. No more messy family dramas, no more cryptic social media quotes. She needed to look like a woman who was too busy saving the world and attending fittings to care about the tabloids. And there was only one place on earth where she could launch this new identity with maximum impact: Paris Fashion Week. But Paris is a city built on 1,000 years of gatekeeping. It is a city that smells desperation from a mile away and punishes it with cold indifference. To make this rebrand work, Meghan didn't just need to attend Paris. She needed to dominate it. She needed to project an aura of such immense wealth and influence that the world would forget she was a former actress who had left her job in London. The centerpiece of this strategy was her choice of residence, the Hotel Plaza Athénée. Located on the legendary Avenue Montaigne, the Plaza Athénée is not just a hotel. It is a statement of war. Staying there is a signal to the global elite that you have arrived. We aren't talking about a standard room. We are talking about the signature suite, a penthouse sanctuary that costs upwards of $20,000 a night, a place where the walls are lined with silk. The view of the Eiffel Tower is unobstructed, and the service is designed for reigning monarchs. Meghan arrived with an entourage that suggested she was still a senior working royal. There were personal stylists, high-level PR handlers, and a private security detail that rivaled that of a head of state. Every exit from the hotel was a choreographed performance. She emerged in oversized sunglasses and Balenciaga coats, working the paparazzi with the practiced precision of a woman who knew exactly what the money shot looked like. The narrative being fed to the American press was clear. Meghan is back. She is the new darling of the French fashion houses. A multi-million-dollar deal is imminent. But the Amal Clooney strategy had one fatal flaw. Amal Clooney actually has the life that Meghan was allegedly trying to simulate. Amal's status is built on a foundation of professional achievement and genuine high society connections. Meghan's status, in this Parisian context, was increasingly looking like it was built on a ghost contract, an illusion of sponsorship that was about to be shattered by the very brand she was using as her shield. While the cameras were flashing outside the Plaza Athénée, the accounting department inside was beginning to notice something strange about the corporate booking code associated with the Duchess's suite. The Parisian heist was underway, but the City of Light was about to turn off the power. And back in America, the woman who had helped build the Sussex throne, Oprah Winfrey, was watching the Amal Clooney performance and realizing that her protégé was playing a very dangerous and very public game of fake it until you make it. In the intricate, shadow-filled world of luxury branding, a deal isn't always a signed document in a leather-bound folder. Often, it begins as a series of whispers, a dance of mutual benefits, and a carefully cultivated understanding. For Meghan Markle, the choice of Balenciaga as the centerpiece of her Parisian rebrand was not accidental. It was a calculated gamble on a brand that was, much like herself, in the midst of a desperate search for redemption. Following its 2022 advertising controversies, Balenciaga was a brand in exile, looking for a way back into the graces of the elite. Meghan, meanwhile, was looking for a way to prove she was still a muse of the highest order. It was a symbiotic crisis, two entities hoping to use each other's faded glory to spark a new fire. But where a professional team would have secured a watertight contract, Meghan's approach was allegedly far more precarious. The mechanics of the ghost contract were built on the power of suggestion. According to industry whispers, Meghan's team didn't walk into the Hotel Plaza Athénée with a signed endorsement agreement. Instead, they arrived with a trail of suggestive correspondence, a string of high-level emails between Meghan's office and mid-level PR contacts at the fashion house. These emails were masterclasses in ambiguity. They spoke of potential synergies, royal-level hospitality, and brand alignment. When it came time to secure the penthouse suite, the Duchess bypass was initiated. In the luxury hospitality industry, the mere mention of a major fashion house is often enough to open doors that are usually locked behind six-figure deposits. It is alleged that Meghan's team utilized a corporate booking code associated with Balenciaga, implying that the fashion house was hosting the Duchess as part of a yet-to-be-announced global partnership. To the hotel's front desk, it looked like a standard celebrity sponsorship. They saw the Balenciaga name, they saw the Duchess of Sussex, and they assumed the bill was settled in a boardroom miles away. They provided the $20,000 a night suite, the private chauffeur, and the royal protocol service on the strength of a name drop. But as the days passed and the bill climbed into the six-figure range, the hotel's accounting department began to dig deeper. They reached out to their primary contacts at Balenciaga to finalize the internal transfer of the costs. The response from the fashion house was not a confirmation. It was a confused silence. Balenciaga had never authorized a corporate account for a royal-adjacent vacation. There was no contract. There was no budget. There was only an actress in a penthouse, wearing borrowed clothes, charging a fortune to a company that had never agreed to pay. The ghost had been spotted, and the haunting was about to end. The problem with trying to pull off a Parisian heist is that the French media does not play by the polite, access-driven rules of the Hollywood PR machine. In America, Meghan could rely on friendly outlets to spin a misunderstanding into a clerical error. In France, however, the tabloids are known for a specific brand of brutal, clinical cynicism. They don't just report on the clothes, they report on the cost, and they always find out who is holding the receipt. As Meghan sat front row at the shows, basking in the artificial glow of the fashion world, the French gossip magazine Le Point was preparing to drop an incendiary exposé. They had done what no American outlet had dared to do. They had called the fashion house directly and asked for the status of the Sussex deal. The response from Balenciaga was a public relations execution. Faced with the prospect of being linked to a billing scandal while still recovering from their own image crisis, the The fashion house didn't just deny the deal, they issued a formal distancing notice. They made it clear that while Meghan was wearing their designs, she was not an authorized representative of the house. The ghost contract was officially dead. The news hit the Parisian elite like a cold front. Suddenly, the Amal Clooney of Montecito was being portrayed in the French press as a royal grifter, a woman who had allegedly faked a sponsorship to live a billionaire lifestyle on someone else's dime. The headlines were merciless. They pointed out the staggering hypocrisy. This was the same woman who had sat on Oprah's couch and complained about the unfair funding of the British monarchy, only to allegedly attempt a corporate heist to fund a suite she couldn't afford herself. The irony was suffocating. Meghan had left the palace complaining that her security and lifestyle weren't being paid for by the British taxpayer. Yet, here she was, allegedly trying to get a private corporation to pick up a $140,000 tab for a week of dress-up. As the story went transatlantic, Meghan's social media strategy, which had been heavy on cryptic quotes about truth always coming out, suddenly went dark. There was no truth quote that could fix a leaked hotel invoice. There was no PR spin that could erase a legal notice from a couture house. Back in Montecito, the silence was even more profound. Meghan had gone into radio silence mode, but the noise from Paris was getting louder. The bubble hadn't just burst. It had imploded, and the debris was falling directly on the one person Meghan couldn't afford to lose, Prince Harry. While Meghan had been playing a high-stakes game of fake it until you make it in the City of Light, Harry was about to realize that the freedom they had fought for was increasingly looking like a gilded, deceptive trap. And in America, Oprah Winfrey was reading the French reports, watching the Amal Clooney mask slip, and realizing that her own reputation was now on the line. While Meghan was busy orchestrating her reimagined persona under the golden lights of the Eiffel Tower, Prince Harry was 3,000 miles away in Montecito, under the impression that their professional life was finally stabilizing. According to insiders, Harry had been briefed by Meghan and her immediate team that the Paris trip was a landmark achievement, a fully vetted, corporate-sponsored launchpad for their next chapter. For a man who spent 36 years within the rigid, transparent financial structures of the British monarchy, the concept of faking a sponsorship was not just alien, it was repulsive. The shock did not hit him in a boardroom, but via a frantic series of alerts from his UK-based legal and security consultants. The French tabloids hadn't just reported on Meghan's presence, they had begun to dissect the irregularities of her stay. When the word freeloading started appearing in headlines next to the Sussex name, Harry's world tilted. He had sacrificed his family, his country, and his military heritage to protect his wife's dignity, only to find that dignity being mocked as a corporate heist. The confrontation that followed Meghan's return to California is now being described by household sources as a watershed moment for the marriage. Harry's fury was reportedly not rooted in the cost of the trip, but in the deception. He discovered the most devastating detail of all. His own name, the name of a prince of the United Kingdom, had been used on the internal hotel documents associated with the disputed corporate codes. He wasn't just a husband watching a PR disaster. He was a prince who had been inadvertently linked to a scheme that looked, to the outside world, like a high-stakes financial deception. "We said we were done with the games," Harry reportedly shouted during a heated exchange that echoed through the vast, empty corridors of their $14 million mansion. For a man who has always been hypersensitive to being managed or lied to, finding out that he had been used as a prop in a ghost contract was a betrayal of the highest order. He realized that the grifter label, first whispered by Spotify executives, was no longer just a mean-spirited insult, it was becoming their permanent global brand. The fallout was immediate and visceral. For 72 hours, the Montecito estate went into a total, terrified lockdown. No visitors were allowed, staff meetings were canceled, and most tellingly, the couple lived in separate wings of the house. Meghan reportedly holed up in her room, insisting that the entire debacle was a logistical error by her assistants and sabotage by the French press. But the trust had already evaporated. Harry began to realize that the freedom they had moved to America for was increasingly looking like a gilded trap built on smoke and mirrors. The united front that had been their only defense against the world had developed a jagged, irreparable crack. In the American celebrity landscape, there are many tiers of power, but there is only one high court. That court is presided over by Oprah Winfrey. For the Sussexes, Oprah wasn't just a neighbor. She was the architect of their American survival. The 2021 interview was more than a television event, it was a baptism. It signaled to the world that Meghan and Harry were under the protection of the Queen of Media. As long as Oprah stood by them, they were untouchable. But the Paris scandal represented a shift that even Oprah couldn't overlook. Oprah's brand is built on the twin pillars of the truth and inspiration. The moment the Parisian heist narrative broke with its allegations of fake sponsorships, disputed bills, and ethical violations, the Sussex brand shifted from inspirational to radioactive. And in Hollywood, being radioactive is a terminal condition. As the crisis deepened, Meghan allegedly attempted to play her ultimate trump card. Sources claim that Meghan reached out to Oprah's inner circle with an urgent pitch. The interview, too. The idea was to do a sit-down, a raw and honest conversation where Meghan could set the record straight about the Paris trip, blaming the vicious European media and unreliable corporate partners for the misunderstanding. Meghan believed that Oprah would, as she had done before, provide the platform to spin the narrative back in her favor. But this time, the line was dead. The response that came back from Oprah's camp was a chilling, professional, and final no. It wasn't just a rejection of an interview, it was a total withdrawal of support. Oprah, a master of brand longevity, reportedly saw the receipts from the Paris scandal and recognized a pattern that she could no longer defend. To Oprah, the allegations of faking a lifestyle were the ultimate red flag. In Hollywood, when the Queen of Media stops taking your calls, it's not just a social snub, it's an industry-wide signal that you are no longer a safe associate. The silence from Oprah's camp sent a shockwave through the Montecito Mafia, the circle of ultra-wealthy A-listers who had previously rallied around the Sussexes. Suddenly, the invitations to charity galas, the casual lunch meetings with studio heads, and the supportive social media posts from celebrity friends vanished. The domino effect was brutal. If Oprah was out, Netflix and Spotify's lukewarm stance suddenly made sense to everyone else. Meghan Markle, the woman who thought she could finesse her way into the heart of the Parisian elite, found herself a pariah in her own neighborhood. The Amal Clooney mask had slipped, and underneath, the industry saw a woman who had allegedly lost the one thing Hollywood values more than fame: credibility. The shield was gone, the mentor had vanished, and for the first time, Meghan was standing completely alone in the glaring, unforgiving light of a truth that no PR team could bury. This wasn't just a bad news cycle. It was the day the American dream died for the Duchess of Sussex. As the Balenciaga sponsorship narrative disintegrated into a pile of legal threats and public denials, the inevitable question began to haunt the industry. If the fashion house didn't pay for the $140,000 Parisian jaunt, and the Sussexes' own bank accounts remained untouched, who was the shadow paymaster? The investigation didn't just uncover a name, it uncovered a clandestine business arrangement that would prove to be the most damaging revelation of all. The receipts, reportedly leaked by a source within a prominent Los Angeles media firm, pointed to a man the press has dubbed Mr. X. He is a ruthless, high-level Hollywood media investor with a long history of buying proximity to famous names to bolster his firm's cultural capital. But this wasn't a gift, and it wasn't a friendship. It was a transaction. In the brutal economy of Hollywood, a $20,000 a night suite isn't a luxury. It is a down payment on someone's future. The leak unearthed a trail of surreptitious correspondence emails sent from Meghan's private account months before the Paris trip. These weren't just friendly inquiries. They were high-level pitches for her upcoming lifestyle and women's empowerment brand. Meghan had reportedly been courting Mr. X, offering him early access to her commercial ventures and insider influence in exchange for the financial backing required to maintain her A-list optics. While Harry believed they were building a brand based on impact, service, and honesty, Meghan was allegedly out in the Hollywood wilderness, pitching their proximity to the crown to the highest bidder. Mr. X didn't pay for the Plaza Athénée because he believed in Meghan's fashion sense. He paid for it because he wanted a royal in his pocket. He wanted to be the man who owned the Sussex Association. When Prince Harry discovered the link to Mr. X, the fallout was catastrophic. To Harry, being bankrolled by a shadowy media mogul was the ultimate betrayal of everything he had sacrificed for. He had spent his entire life trying to escape the firm in London, a structure he viewed as controlling and cold, only to find that his wife had allegedly signed them up for a new kind of firm. A firm where their movements, their style, and their very names were being traded for hotel vouchers and chauffeur services. "You've turned our lives into a product," Harry reportedly fumed. The discovery that Meghan had been brokering deals with investors behind his back shattered the united front that had been their only defense against the world. He realized that while he was playing the role of the protective husband, Meghan was allegedly playing the role of the desperate entrepreneur, willing to let a stranger foot the bill for a lifestyle they could no longer afford on their own. The realization was chilling. In Hollywood, $140,000 isn't a sponsorship, it's a loan on your soul. And Mr. X was already looking to collect. The nightmare in Montecito is far from over. In fact, the most devastating chapter is currently being written by a team of investigative filmmakers in the UK. Reports have surfaced that a high-profile documentary team has spent months piecing together the definitive account of the Paris scandal. And unlike the tabloids, they aren't working with palace whispers, they are working with forensic evidence. This upcoming exposé, tentatively titled The Price of the Throne, is rumored to feature everything Meghan feared would stay hidden. It reportedly contains the physical invoices from the Hotel Plaza Athénée, the internal emails detailing the manipulation of corporate codes, and, most damningly, hot mic recordings of hotel staff discussing the frantic attempts by the Sussex team to settle the bill as Balenciaga pulled their support. This isn't just a documentary, it is a forensic media execution. It is the final blow to the Amal Clooney dream. The irony is as sharp as a diamond. Paris was supposed to be the moment Meghan finally transcended the royal drama and became a peer of the global elite, a woman whose intellect and style commanded respect from every corner of the world. Instead, it stripped away the last of her royal mystique and left behind a narrative of desperation. She wanted to be seen as a titan. She ended up being portrayed as a social climber who couldn't even afford her own hotel room without a shadow financier pulling the strings. The fallout has been equally terminal in the halls of Buckingham Palace. King Charles and Prince William reportedly viewed the Paris scandal as the cold confirmation. It was the final piece of evidence they needed to permanently close the door on any reconciliation. To the British monarchy, the idea of a prince's wife allegedly freeloading in Paris and being bankrolled by a Hollywood investor is a fundamental lack of character that no amount of PR can fix. The palace has reportedly signaled that the Sussexes are now private citizens in every sense of the word, with zero path back to the royal fold. Inside the Montecito mansion, the walls are closing in. Meghan's key personal assistant, the one who witnessed the mechanics of the ghost contract firsthand, has reportedly resigned, fearing that the documentary will name her as a fall guy for the deception. When your own staff, the people who see the truth behind the curtain, decide to flee, the world knows the situation is terminal. Meghan Markle's Parisian dream has become a global cautionary tale. It proves that in the modern world of high-stakes influence, you can change your designer coat, you can change your country, and you can even change your PR team every 6 months, but the truth always finds its way to the front desk. Paris was supposed to be her triumphant comeback. Instead, it sealed her fate. As the world waits for the documentary to drop and the physical receipts to be displayed for all to see, the Sussex illusion is finally and permanently breaking apart. What do you think? Is there any way back for Meghan and Harry after the Oprah snub and the Paris scandal? Was Harry a victim of this deception? Or was he an active participant in the hustle? And most importantly, what happens to the Sussex brand when the world finally sees the physical receipts for themselves? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'll be monitoring the UK documentary release closely, so make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss our breakdown when the real story behind the Parisian heist finally goes public. Until next time, remember, in the world of the ultra-famous, the only thing more expensive than a penthouse suite is the cost of a lie.